Hey, Jess Reynolds here with Academy of Integrative Medicine. The other day, a student asked me a question about posture. What ended up happening is we had a client come into the student clinic dealing with quite poor posture. We went through the typical therapy, and then home care was the most important part to deal with this posture. So the posture was nothing unusual, right? Quite a severe case of forward head posture and medially rotated shoulders. So when we talk about correcting posture, there are three things that we need to keep in mind: stretching, strengthening, and lifestyle advice. So we're going to start with the stretching and strengthening idea. When we begin talking about stretching and strengthening, we need to set the stage. We need a little bit of context. So the context we're going to use for this discussion is phasic and postural muscles. So using phasic and postural muscles, it's a theory of how muscles work. It's a theoretical way to divide the muscles into different actions and functions. And it's going to serve us very well for this conversation. Beginning with our postural muscles. Postural muscles, by their nature and their name, are designed to maintain proper, healthy, erect posture. That's normal upright posture. Another key characteristic of postural muscles is they tend to be constantly fighting the effects of gravity. So as we stand and walk, they're the muscles that are maintaining our upright position. So they're always on, right? Whenever we're standing or walking, we're not thinking about our postural muscles. They're just doing what they need to be doing. On the other hand, we have our phasic muscles. Phasic muscles perform an action. So what I mean by that is if we want to take a step forward, we contract a phasic muscle. If I want to grab a cup and lift it and take a sip of water, that's a phasic action. It's performing an action, right? So you can conceptualize the difference between postural and phasic muscles. So when we talk about posture, we're dealing largely with postural muscles. We're going to dip our toe into how phasic muscles play a role as well. So when we talk about postural muscles, another defining characteristic of them is they don't atrophy nearly as quickly as our phasic muscles. Consider, for example, if you're to have your arm in a cast. If your arm is in a cast, you're not using your arm or your upper extremity that much, right? But you take the cast off and you look at one forearm in comparison to the other, the arm in the cast is going to be atrophied, much smaller. But let's be honest, did you use your chest muscle that much when you were in your cast? Probably not. And yet, when you compare one side to the other, they're still relatively the same. That's because your pec major, particularly the upper fibers of the pec major, are considered to be a postural muscle. They maintain posture. All right, so they atrophy less quickly. That's a characteristic. Now, while they don't necessarily atrophy as quickly, what they do end up doing is they get locked short. What I mean by locked short is they're stuck or locked in a shortened position. So maintaining the discussion about the upper extremity, particularly the chest, because that's what we're looking at in this example of medially rotated shoulders. So what ends up happening when you hold these postural muscles in a shortened position for a long period of time is the connective tissue or the fascia surrounding those muscles gets shortened and stuck in a shortened position. You get fascial adhesions between the articulating layers. So again, it's not a shortened muscle. Now, the biggest way to tell the difference between an adaptively shortened muscle, that's actually a short muscle, and a muscle that's locked short is, does the client or yourself have the capability of taking that muscle into a lengthened position? Let's use that pec, for example. Turning to the side, if my shoulders are medially rotated and my pec major is one of the muscles holding it in that position. Now, it's not just the pec major, I understand that, but continuing to talk about pec major, particularly those upper fibers. So I'm held in this medially rotated position. Do I have the ability to roll my shoulders back and open up that chest? If I have the ability to do so, but it's difficult, and the moment I stop trying, my shoulders roll back, that's locked short. Versus a muscle that's adaptively shortened or actually shortened, you try and roll those shoulders back and they just don't go. They will not go. That tells you that you're dealing with a different issue. Now, that's quite rare in my experience, but ultimately, the therapy is the same. It just takes much longer if the muscle is adaptively shortened versus locked short. So we have this idea now about how postural muscles can get locked short or stuck in a shortened position. It's going to be the chest, but also the SCM. The SCM is another postural muscle, and it could get locked short in that forward head posture. So how do we correct this? Well, stretch, strengthen, lifestyle. We need to stretch and open up the chest, right? Using the door frame stretch, any stretch that you come up with that's going to stretch and open that chest. And we need to make sure we do so regularly enough that is going to help to really keep that muscle in a lengthened position. Now we need to strengthen as well. A lot of the time when we give strengthening exercises, what makes sense is to strengthen only the antagonistic muscle to the one that's pulling, right? So it's very typical with medially rotated shoulders is to stretch the chest, strengthen the back and rhomboids. Totally agree. Absolutely. Stretch the chest, strengthen the rhomboids. But it's also important to strengthen the chest. When we strengthen, when we move, movement is one of the best things we can do to relieve and release fascial adhesions, that along with therapy, right? So we've got to stretch, we've got to strengthen. Now let's talk about lifestyle. And this is really going to address the key question that I had, which is, after this client left, we gave all of these great home care, bits of home care advice. When he was sitting down in a chair, he found it very uncomfortable to sit in a healthy, erect posture. And that's when we get into the lifestyle. Would you recommend your client to sit up straight with their shoulders back as often as possible? My opinion is no. Now the reason is, remember, posture is due to postural, or in fact, better way to say it, is posture is held by postural muscles. Postural muscles activate unconsciously when we stand in a healthy, erect, upright posture and position. Stand being the key word here. Their job is to fight off the effects of gravity, anti-gravity muscles. So when we're sitting, what ends up happening is our postural muscles disengage. Not all of them, of course, but it's a sign to the body, hey, you no longer need to attempt to try and constantly keep me stable, right? When you're sitting in slouch, it's not that hard. You don't have to try and balance. You don't have to stay erect. So your postural muscles, they essentially go offline. So this is why when you're sitting down and somebody says, oh, sit up straight, you sit up straight, and you're like, yeah, right, sit up straight. 2 minutes later, when you stop thinking about it, you slouch back down. Because now what we're trying to do is we're trying to ask our postural muscles to perform a phasic job. We're asking our postural muscles consciously to contract. They don't want to. They're disengaged because you're sitting. Why should they, right? They're trying to conserve energy. So the solution then isn't necessarily to consistently sit upright. Now, that's good if you can do it, but what's much better is to constantly and consistently train those muscles to either lengthen or strengthen, ideally both. So the lifestyle advice then isn't necessarily sit up straight more often. It's get up from a sitting position more often and do your stretch and strengthening exercise. If they're required to sit for long periods of time, because maybe they get in the zone and they're writing and they're sitting for a long period, now you need to do a good inquiry into how they're sitting. So is your client sitting maybe in bed leaning up against the wall, or on the couch in a slouch position, or contorting their body and twisting in some sort of strange posture and position? If that's the case, and they really want to maintain or move towards a healthier posture, we need to look at a better way to sit. Now there's different options out there, right? Very simply, you can look at an ergonomically correct chair. I've got nothing wrong with those. They're great. If you're going to sit, be comfortable, but don't slouch. Other options are going to be things like sitting on an exercise ball. Not bad, not my favorite. Exercise balls have a way of kind of encouraging adaptation postures. Still not bad though. But you're going to work with your client to come up with a way to sit in a healthier posture. Now, we don't aim for the best, right? When we give home care, particularly lifestyle advice, it would be the best thing you could do is get a standing treadmill desk or whatever the newest fad is going to be, right? So that might be the best, or there is such thing as a best practice. But we're not going to tell our client to do that. In fact, in the case we're talking about, where somebody has very severe medially rotated shoulders and forward head posture, has a relatively sedentary lifestyle, we want to take a little baby step. So the step might be getting a simple computer chair, something that will allow you to sit with a slightly better posture, and then consistently move towards that healthy overall posture. Right, so as usual, long answer for a simple question. How do we correct posture? Well, we be patient. We stretch the locked short muscles. We strengthen the muscles that are weak in the back in this case. We're also going to make some very simple lifestyle modifications, but not necessarily encourage them to sit in a healthy, upright posture. The work is done so we can sit in a position that doesn't cause us pain and discomfort. Great. So if you'd like to learn more about fascia and how this whole locked short and another concept, locked long, works and what fascial adhesions are, I would encourage you to check out the free course that I have called A Field Guide to Fascia. You can get access to it by clicking on the link below, and it's where we go through all things fascia, from functions and dysfunctions to what we can do to make our fascia and our clients' fascia healthier in a short period of time. All right, thanks. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to send them to me. I'm happy to answer them. All right, see you next time.